I'm Dr. Montserrat Andreys. Welcome to Hey Doc Podcast, a space where we chat, laugh, and share stories of Black, Indigenous, and POC healthcare providers. We inspire young folks to become doctors, deepen connection in our community, and dive into the complexities of our stories. This podcast is designed to be listened to, watched, liked, and shared. While you're listening, pop over to Instagram and TikTok to see photos, quotes, and these doctors busting a move. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and please leave us a review. All right, let's get started. Luvjonez, kick us off with a beat. All right, welcome to Hey Doc Podcast. I'm so excited today because Sita and I have been trying to meet in real life for probably over a year at this point, and we had some technical difficulties the first time we tried to record the podcast, and so it just feels like life keeps making sure that we really want this. So welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you so much.
I would love to start with, will you please say your name for us and maybe the way you would say it in a professional setting and maybe the way that your family would say it?
Yeah, I don't think there's not much of a difference there, but I will my full name is Sita Elizabeth Almaria Symonette.
That's a beautiful full name. I love names that are just like, they have a lot of substance behind them.
Thank you. Yeah.
Have you had any trouble with your name at all, like in different circumstances, or has it always been pretty easy for you?
Oh, my whole life. Yeah. I think the memory that just kind of popped into my head was I grew up in Delaware until I was about 11 years old, and they would see my first name and then just assume that my first middle name, Elizabeth, because that's what, was common or what they understood, was my actual first name. And they would kind of skip over my first name and call me Elizabeth, or it would be on tests when I was younger. And I would be like, that's not my first name, Yeah. And then the saying of it is always, you would think, it's very short, SITA, but it's said in so many different ways. And then I think, then people being uncomfortable when they say it wrong. And so, yeah. And so when I was younger, I think I was like, why don't I just go by something more simple? But I'm so glad that I never did. And I love my name. I think my parents did a great job.
Yeah, it's a beautiful name. They say it's our first medicine, right?
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Yeah. Yes. I was in a workshop once, and they were like, "Your name is your first medicine," and we had this whole conversation around names, and I was just like, "This is very healing for me."
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, my name has been. What I have come to realize is that I absolutely love it, and I especially love it when it comes out of the mouth of people that love me. But the people that don't care about me or that are at a random coffee shop and need to try to write my name on a coffee cup, I don't like it when I'm like, give that back. You don't get it. You don't get to have my name. And so, Sita, will you share with us what your identities are?
Yeah. I identify as Black and a cis woman and queer.
Awesome. As a doctor with these identities, how has that either helped or hindered you? What have you noticed?
Oh, well, I think, I'll start at undergrad because that's when I initially, had the started to do pre-med classes. I was actually initially looking into go to osteopathic medicine, and then kind of found Chinese medicine along the way. But the comments, from quote unquote friends, I don't know if I would call them that these days, that would say things like, well, if you get into medical school, it's because they're trying to like fill a racial quota, it's not because of your actual abilities, as if you could get into medical school without doing all the classes and work that we all have to do. And then once I was in Chinese medical school, I was the only Black woman in my class. Mm-hmm. And there were two others on like the farther ends of the class at one point, but I would say at other points I was the only Black woman in my school, which is hard. I think I've talked with lots of other people who have been through graduate programs and medical programs in the same boat, and it is rough to try to find people to connect with, because when you're in school, you have to find people you connect with and also hold true to yourself and your identities and who you are. And I think, I was able to do that largely in part because I have amazing support in my wife, and we had communities outside of school that were really helpful. And then I found a few people in school too, of course, that I was able to connect with and be myself with. But I would say that would be the hindrance. The beautiful thing, as far as running my own business and practice, has been being able to be a place for so many Black and Brown, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander people to come to, queer people, LGBTQIA people to come to and feel safe and get care, and be that place. That has been the biggest joy. It's why I do what I do in so many reasons, to be able to be that healing person. So I think that would be the biggest benefit that I've had from it.
Yeah, you kind of had to get through the school in order to then be able to create the space on the other side. Did the lack of Black people in your school include the administration and faculty?
Oh, definitely. There was one Black woman clinic advisor, and that was it.
Yeah. It's hard. I don't think that I realized until I was in such a stressful situation as our medical programs are, and looking around and just being like, I need someone that understands me. I need familiar. And I think maybe I wouldn't have felt that if school wasn't as stressful, but in that moment I was just like, anybody. And there were a few in my program. There was one woman in particular that was like a safe haven, but it's stunning that I think even the programs don't necessarily recognize that they are not engaging in students from those backgrounds, in part because they don't reflect it in the faculty.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, yeah, it'd be really great to open up a catalog and see like, oh, these are my professors, I'll definitely go there.
Well, I was just going to say, and even practicing like an East Asian medicine, there weren't that many East Asian people in my school either, which is also, I think, something to be noted. I think I could count in probably one hand the amount of East Asian people that were in my class, maybe two hands in the whole school, which when this medicine comes from that culture, it's very telling of what has happened, who this medicine has been afforded to in our country, right? To not have more diverse backgrounds of people looking to practice it and to learn it.
Yeah. Did that ever come up in any conversations with the school?
I would say yes in some ways, but nothing, I think, to the degree that now that I've known other students to go through school, it has been more honed on, and there's been more demand from the school to look at themselves and to really look at their programs and who they serve and who they don't serve and why that is, as opposed to, oh, these are the people that find us. Because we know that's not the case, right? Ever.
Yeah, that's always the lazy answer.
Yeah.
Anytime I'm in any situation, people are like, oh, well, but I mean, this is who came. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. So you were mentioning that you were originally considering osteopathic programs. Where did the change happen for you?
I actually did a program for a month in my junior year of college at an osteopathic school, specifically geared towards getting more Black and brown people into their programs. It was in Kirksville, Missouri. Am I saying that? I think that's correct. In a very small town. No, sorry, that's someplace else. Sorry, I was in Athens, Ohio. That was another place I had gone to, and the program was really interesting. And I remember being there and saying, this is a bit more holistic than traditional medical school. And do you do anything with herbs or anything like that? And there was just not. They were like, no, that's not really part of our program. And I was raised by two hippie-ish parents, and always kind of had this calling to work with herbal medicine and medicine more of the land, I guess. And so when I was applying for osteopathic medical schools, I found out about Chinese medicine, and I went to check out the school, a couple of different schools, and I just fell in love with everything that you could treat. And I said this in a previous interview, but I realized now I never actually got acupuncture before I decided to go to school for it. I think I just felt that called to it. And so I set off down that road, and, I'm 11 years in now, which is crazy, of my practice, that is.
Yeah. Wow. 11 years. It's really, that's really telling, because I think recently I was reminded of a saying that, overnight success takes about 10 years.
Right.
And I was like, oh, yes. You're at that 11-year mark, right? Where people are like, oh, yeah, Sita, doesn't everyone know her? And you're like, that takes a while.
It takes a lot of work.
Yeah. So when you were getting ready to kind of embark on going to school, who were the sources of your greatest support?
Well, I had actually, my now wife and I had just started dating. We'd been friends for about a year and a half, about 3 months before I went to school. The first school I went to was in San Diego. And so she was a huge support, but also my brothers, they packed up a couple cars and drove me all the way down to San Diego to help me move in, and were a huge support for me. I would say who I call my godfather, uncle, a very close family friend, Billy Frank Jr., who my younger brother was best friends with his son. And so we kind of became family over the years, and him and his son, and a huge support for me. I have a lot of people, I think it's so important for people to not think that anyone does anything on their own, right? I mean, I think that is a myth that is told so often. And I think it's a myth that particularly us Black and Brown people it's shoved down our throats to believe, when it's not true of anyone. But in particularly looking at white people who think that they got someplace on their own, and you look at all the support they had their whole lives, but it's not recognized. And then we're told that's what we have to do. So the support, I had a lot of support to get me there and to get me through school.
Besides the friends that were kind of like, if you get through, it's, kind of quota meeting. Were there any people that tried to discourage you from going into medicine?
That's an interesting question. I had people try to discourage me from going to Chinese medicine. They had seen me on this path of going into some type of Western medicine. And, there's a certain clout that comes with that doesn't always come with the medicine that I practice. And so because of those reasons, I think that was the discouragement. It was I'm trying to think of other. I think maybe I have decided not to remember if there were other times, which we do, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just when you're embarking on something so hard, they're just, whether you've had people say discouraging things, if that has happened, you need to silence that real quick. Otherwise, it'll just eat you.
Yeah.
It's too challenging. Like, there's too many huge challenges. Were there any really memorable times in your studies or in your program, like whether they were just like really silly or funny, or just things that you didn't necessarily expect would be happening to you in school?
Yeah, sorry, that one is not one I can think of off the top of my head, silly or funny. I mean, not to say that I didn't have fun in school, because I did, I know that, but I just can't think of.
How about, was there, for me anyway, when I was in school, I kind of had this like running list of things that I wanted to know about myself and about the body, or little nuggets that I gathered along the way that I was just like, I wish I'd known this 10 years ago, I think I've mentioned this actually in another episode, but as a performer, this was so huge for me. When I realized that there was actually adrenaline receptors on the bladder. And so that's why when you get stage fright, you really have to go to the bathroom, which is the most inconvenient thing if you're in full costume or whatever you're doing. But just knowing that that was a real thing, that we would get like an effect that way, that would have relaxed me tremendously to know ahead of time. Was there anything that you happened to learn in school about the body that you thought like, this makes the cost of admission almost worth it?
I remember something kind of along those lines of learning. So when I was in school, and you talked about, it was very stressful, right? It's so stressful. You're taking so many classes, and I never before, not after, but during school, I would burp all the time, like constantly. And in one of my classes, in Chinese medicine, that comes from the liver, is the organ that's supposed to like move chi or energy throughout the body, like in a correct path. But when you're stressed out, what can happen is the liver can kind of like go in the wrong way, we'll say, and mess with the digestive system. And one of the signs of like being very stressed out is like constantly burping. And so I think that is like it's like those little things. And I find this in practice a lot when we're doing intakes and like we're able to take these little things that people think are completely random when I'm asking a million questions and put it together and then explain to them, well, this is why this is happening, right? Like, I think like being able to do that with things that don't seem like they go together. I love being able to do that, and learning that in school was definitely super helpful to just know what's happening with your body, right? And like to have that for myself and to be able to give that to my patients that know these random things aren't going are harmful necessarily, and two, there's a reason behind them. So I think that would probably be. Luckily, I don't constantly burp anymore, which is not the most pleasant thing to have happen. But.
It's really funny that you say that. I used to teach anatomy and physiology and pathology to massage students. And, they were a little bit earlier in their science educations. And I remember sometimes, the internalized knowledge of allopathic medicine would conflict with some of the new things that they were starting to learn about the body. And, they would often feel very conflicted, like, well, but allopathic medicine is telling me that there's nothing wrong, even though there is something wrong, but I don't know what to trust now or what to do. And I remember telling them, there's a lot of different types of medicine around the globe for a reason. And if one form of medicine isn't giving you the answers that you need, but there's another form of medicine that says, this totally makes sense to us, we really understand this. I was like, go with the one that has answers for what you have, and just don't think that you have to be so exclusive. You can benefit from literally the medicines all around the world and people's experiences and, what we've been able to learn. That it doesn't really do us a lot of good to be so shut down that we're not willing to listen to anybody else's knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty, right, of medicines, right? That you can find an answer somewhere. And I love, like, working with chiropractic doctors and Western doctors and naturopathic doctors, because like that's where the healing can happen when we all work together. Because it's often not just one answer, whether you vibe towards one type of medicine or the other, right? Often it's a combination of all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always worked in integrative settings. You also work in an integrative setting. Do you all refer with things amongst yourselves?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, which is really great. It's so, and I love the people I get to work with. And so it's always like, yes, I mean, go see them, like you will be in good hands.
Yeah. Did you always think that you would work in an integrative setting like that when you were looking?
I always wanted to. And it kind of fell into place. It was not something that I intentionally created, which is kind of a whole nother story, but it happened. And I guess I could do the short version. The clinic that I now own, where I was renting space out of, a group of other practitioners started to rent space out of it. And we kind of were this integrative clinic all of a sudden. And through time, some people have stayed and some people have left, but we still, we have a chiropractor and me as an acupuncturist and a naturopathic doctor. And it's great. I wouldn't want to work any other way.
Yeah. So how you recently were able to purchase this practice, which is a huge step. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How did this all come about for you?
Oh, well, let's see. I started at the clinic that Black Pearl Wellness now, which was Recruit Natural Medicine at the time, back in 2011. Yes. So I've been here almost 10 years. And there had been some different practitioners kind of come and go throughout the years. And I was always kind of the unofficial manager of the clinic, I guess, making sure if something happened, I would be contacting the owner and like, we'd make sure to like get it fixed. And the previous owner, who I don't think she would mind me saying her name, is public record, Ronnie Recruit. She really had this passion for the clinic to be an integrative, like healing space for the community. And she is actually just passionate about helping the community, in particular the arts. I don't know, you may know her name from working on the arts. She has done a lot of support for different plays and things to happen. She's just a wonderful woman. And she, had been running the clinic for about 10 years or so and decided that she wanted to move on from that. And we had developed a relationship throughout the years, partially through my work at Planned Parenthood, who she's also supported, and NARAL. She's been a pretty big supporter of. I think she was on the board for a little while there. And so she asked me literally almost a year, in July of 2019, if I was interested in owning the clinic and, kind of continuing this dream. And so it took us, about a year for all of like the paperwork and business plans and all of that stuff to happen. And then we purchased it July 31st of this year, which has been, years, really years in the making. As you said, these things don't happen overnight by any means. And it took a lot of work throughout that year for that to happen. But it's also like a lifetime dream come true, which I'm so grateful for. And my wife and I own the clinic together, which is great.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so we get to work together in a new capacity. she's been such a big part of my business, throughout the years, and it wouldn't be what it is without her. So it seemed like, the right next step to have this business together.
Just kind of make it official, all that behind the scenes work.
Yeah, so much behind the scenes work.
So what will she be doing for the clinic?
So she's going to help with once we're able to gather again and do things like that, we want to have community events. So she'll definitely help with that. She helps a lot with we're working on websites. We just put up our signs and we were working with a graphic designer. So we have our logo. So all those kind of technical things, she's huge help in making happen. Because as you know, running a full-time practice is also very time consuming. So there's no way I could do both by myself.
Yeah, it's incredibly challenging to the focus that it takes to be a good doctor. And then to, kind of decide what additional things you can add to it. It really, because I think if your mindset is around patient care, then what you don't want to do is ever have anything sacrifice that. And so it's a matter of when you don't get to kind of test your capacity, because then you need to kind of anticipate what you think it's going to be in order to get everything done. And that can be really challenging for sure. So now what are you dreaming into now that this clinic space, even though you've been in it for a long time, right? But now it gets to kind of take the shape of your desires for it. What do you foresee besides adding community events and things like that?
Yeah, well, I think one thing that we are really excited about being able to do once we're able to gather again is art and healing nights. Where we highlight Black, Brown artists. We have the capacity to basically kind of have a little gallery show and for artists. And we've done some First Thursdays in the past, but we really want this to be focused on like where art and healing meets, which you are, so good at already knowing. So I'm sure I'll be calling you in the future. Yeah.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah. So that's something we really want to, and partially like also in homage of Ronnie, who like those are two of the things that she loves so much. And so that is one of the events we want to do. Another one I've been dreaming about is having like an every other month open healing events, which would just for the BIPOC community, which would and queer community, which would be complimentary, just ways to give back, and then also figuring out how I can make that more sustainable, to be more often. I've done some offerings through Black Pearl Acupuncture to use acupuncture to help treat the effects of racism and the like PTSD that comes from that we all, all the microaggressions and macroaggressions that we suffer on a daily basis from, working on getting the body to process and rid that, which acupuncture can be wonderful for. And, I've got to see some really beautiful healing, and I just want to make that a more central part of my practice, and the clinic, bringing in some other practitioners to be able to do that. And then, there's bigger dreams than that, but I think I'll start with those. And
You're like, my dreams are this big.
Yeah, yeah.
I was reading about the work that you were doing around the PTSD that is documented around oppressive and racist acts. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that work.
Yeah. So the other part that's been really well documented and acupuncture has been used for a lot in the past and currently is specifically around PTSD for veterans. And so I was looking at using acupuncture to treat these effects. And I was like, well, if you can use it in this way with these protocols to treat PTSD for veterans, like why couldn't it be correlated and brought over to using it to treat PTSD for what we experience on a regular basis? And it's mostly ear acupuncture that I found is the most effective. And essentially, it helps to take our bodies out of these fight and flight or freeze situations that happens on the sympathetic nervous system, right? Where it's not something, there are other things you can do, meditation and things like that. But I think the nice thing about acupuncture is you don't have to think about it, right? I put these needles in your ears, and then your body is taken out of this fight, flight, freeze response. And I have had people tell me, I haven't had an appetite for weeks, and can it work that fast? I'm on the table and all of a sudden I'm hungry. I'm like, yes, it can work that fast, to see these responses. And even in myself, that's the treatment I'll give myself when I just feel like I need some grounding and to be taken out of this response. And it's such a when we're constantly in these states, or we go in and out of these states, it takes up so much of our energy and capacity to be able to live a full life, right? And so the idea is to and I know there's lots of other acupuncturists doing this work too, which is really cool to see. But I want to be one of them out there, giving this medicine so that we can feel grounded in our bodies in a way that, because of micro or macroaggressions, we get taken out of that. I think I was thinking about my older brother. I was having a conversation with him about this work. And he said the first time he really realized all this weight that he carries with him was there was when he went to Panama for the first time, and all of a sudden it was gone because he looked around and everybody, were Black and brown, Afro Latino, they looked like him, and he didn't. All of a sudden, he was like, I didn't really realize it until it wasn't there, So how can we make that happen more often with our medicines in our everyday lives? So, and I'm sure there's much more work and exploration to be done on that, but that's one way that I think is helpful.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's amongst many other reasons, why I hope that people travel as much as they can, because I think there's a lot of experiences that come on an interpersonal level that I feel like you start seeing who you really truly are, because in each environment we're a little bit different, right? But then you get to see which parts of you are a reflection or are brought about because of the environment that you're in, and then which parts are like the core you. That's been my experience anyway. And so to hear your brother, all of a sudden realizing like, oh, all of these maybe thoughts or feelings or experiences like are not mine. They're a reflection of the environment that I've been in. It's just, that gives me like the DNA tingle of recognition of, a shared experience that I'm like, oh, I totally understand that feeling.
Well, and I think that's part of the gift that being healers that are from our different communities, right, and different cultures. That's part of the gift that we get to share with our patients, right? Because we're able to reflect, no, you're not making this up. No, this is not, there's nothing wrong with you. And to have your healthcare provider tell you that, I think it impacts differently, because I'm sure you have the same experience. You have so many patients that have the exact opposite experience with their healthcare providers. And they're constantly, trying to figure out how to fix something that's actually being done to them. It's not because of them, So.
Yeah. Or just, nothing showed up on the labs. And you're like, it's like, okay, cool, but can there maybe be other things? Kind of going back to the idea, right, of like, look for the medicine that has what you need and what is offering kind of what you need a little bit differently. So kind of thinking back to what you were mentioning earlier about the fact that you hadn't experienced acupuncture prior to deciding that you were going to go to school, then what was the experience like for you as you were kind of going? Because I'm guessing you were receiving a lot of treatment and work and practice as you were going through the program.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I remember the first time I got cupping. That was a pretty profound experience. I mean, I just started to cry. I mean, it was such a huge release, because we carry all these things in our bodies, right? We carry all of our experience, good, sad, funny, all these experiences in our bodies. And some of those experiences need release. And I think, the interesting thing, and I think maybe this is why I didn't need it before I chose to do the medicine, was it never felt like foreign. It never felt like, I was never scared. Like I was never scared to practice on myself or in the classroom. It just felt like this. Yes, of course, this is me. This is what I'm doing. So I think I lost track of the question you asked me.
Just like what the experience was. I think because you were, mentioning how for PTSD patients, having the ability to go through this for the first time and like have these releases, and I could just imagine that as a student, even though receiving the work from other students as we're learning. I don't know how it is in acupuncture school.
No, you do.
But you could imagine a bunch of chiropractors trying to learn how to adjust for the first time may not be the most therapeutic thing you've ever received in your life.
Yeah. I remember becoming very picky about who worked on me very, very early on. I think it was my first probably quarter of school, because part of the program was there was some massage mixed into it. And I got this massage from somebody that just had me like, it was just all wrong, you're supposed to like walk out of a massage feeling good. And like I said, I walked out feeling like the energy was totally jumbled. And I think that was the first experience where I was like, yeah, I'm going to be real picky from now on about who I partner with, about who I let work on me. And so I think from that point on, I had a pretty good experience, mostly because I would only work with people that I was like, yes, you seem to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're at least consciously trying.
Yeah. I mean, you don't always get to choose, but I think somehow I was pretty lucky in finding the right people to partner with. Cause it is, I mean, I think this is true in any medicine, whether it be Western or, East Asian or any medicine, the energy, right, that you bring into that medicine, it makes a difference. And I think that it's been so apparent in part of my learning over the last 11 years, and the work that I do on myself directly shows up in my practice and the way that I'm able to heal. The healer I was when I first started practicing is not the healer that I am now. Not to say that was bad, but it's just changed, And I think if you're able to have that conscious understanding, it's a real gift for yourself to be able to do that growth and then be able to change and become a better healer as time goes on.
Yeah. What have been some of the places where you've received some of the growth or some of the things that that you bring into your practice differently than you did?
Oh, therapy. Yeah. I think I started therapy in 2014 and still have a therapist I see, depending on what's happening, semi-regular or to regular basis. And it's the best thing that I've ever done for myself or my practices or my life, my family's life. I think anybody who is in relation with me, I think that saying, if you want to change the world, start with yourself, is so true. If we can learn how to undo patterns that aren't serving us, then we are able to show up as a better human being in the world, and able to listen and communicate with others so much better. And that is what we need, and particularly these days, is to be able to communicate with each other, and be comfortable within ourselves so that that real communication can happen. So I think that's where I see it the most, is that's definitely been one of the biggest modalities. I mean, obviously I get acupuncture, I get chiropractic medicine. Those are kind of my two go-tos for healing on a regular basis. And I don't know who I would be without them. I often feel like, gosh, we should just everybody needs this. There's so much pain and so many different things that I don't know how people go through their lives without having access to this. Mm-hmm. Or I do, but it does not sound as pleasant. So I think that, yeah, that would be a huge one. Also, I have my wife and I practice a Hawaiian spirituality, which has been, just as life transforming, I would say, if not more so than the therapy that I've been doing for the past 6 years or so. Having that deep grounding spiritual belief system, for me, I often, it's what has gotten us through this whole past year and all the ups and downs, which have been many. We've had some really, really great things happen and really great highs, and we've had some really, really low lows. I've lost some really close family friends, and I think that's 2020, right? It shows us all of that life encompasses. So those are the things that have helped me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Cheers to therapy and sexuality.
Right.
I am a fan. Like, one of the things that I see happening a lot right now, and I am a huge advocate for continuing, is normalizing therapy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
therapy is the best thing that could happen to anybody. Like, me receiving therapy is the best thing that could happen to anybody I interact with.
Right? It is.
It's just like, it's like my gift to everybody else. Like,
Yeah.
if I am, in good self-awareness and I'm kind of tending to myself in that way, then things are much better for anyone that is in relation with me, for sure. And I think the peace that comes to, like, the inner quiet that comes with being able to kind of unearth and process and work through a lot of these things is indescribable. And kind of settling in a way that I think, when I used to hear about people talk about, like, that adult, like the settling that happens as an adult, like, I don't think I ever really felt that with a place, like, living in a particular way or having a particular job or anything like that. But kind of the settling in myself that happened once I was receiving therapy, I was like, oh, I think this is it. This is adulting. Like, this is what it feels like to be like, I'm good, So I'm really curious, in your process through, like, getting ready with, like, undergrad or being in the program as for acupuncture, or once you were in your practice, because it can kind of come for all of us in a different place. Was there ever a time that was so hard that you were like, I think this might be the thing that keeps me from being a doctor?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the first thing that pops into my mind is like the whole first year of starting my practice. This is not an over exaggeration. I think I cried like every single day. I mean, it's, you are in this very structured, very like, what you need to do to get through it. Programs for me, I mean, I went straight from high school to college to grad school for the most part, just very small blip, but always knowing I had another school I was going to go to. And then being out in the world in a way, trying to create something, right? But as you create your own business, it's never been created before, not really knowing exactly how to do that. And then wanting to be good at it, right? Wanting to be able to help people, and, finding the confidence to know that I knew enough to do that. And then all the things that go with running a business that for most of us, we aren't taught. Even if you get like one business class or two in school, it's nothing like going out into the world and doing that. And yeah, I think I played with the idea. I was like, maybe I'll become a stylist, which one of my mentors was like, you just went to school for how long? He was very upset with that idea. I was like, oh, maybe I won't do that.
You're like, no. Yeah, okay. Just kidding.
I mean, I was thinking about all these different things. So maybe I should go do this instead, something easier, because it's a hard path at the beginning. And Yeah, I think that first year I was kind of searching and starting my business and also working for like two other people. You know, I think I had 3 jobs for the first couple years to get by, you know. I mean, I didn't get to start out with working with a practitioner who gave me patients, or, you know, I had to do all the networking and getting my name out there, you know, with my community. Like, luckily I had networking events and places to go to do that. But I had to put the work in, which I know everybody has a different experience with, like what that looks like. But for me, that's what my beginning looked like. And I'm thankful for it. I mean, you grow so much, right? Through all the tears. And as things start to fall into place step by step, there is this like slow confidence that you're building. And like also this awe that you're like, oh, I created that program and people came to it and they liked it. And, you know, that wasn't there before. So slowly that started to happen. But yeah, that first year was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah, I think none of us escape like those moments of looking around and being like, do I really want to do this? You know, I mean, it's definitely not for the weak.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I mean that. I think it takes a lot of strength, but it also takes a lot of community and a lot of support. You know, I think that there's plenty of people that have the willpower and the intelligence and the strength that don't necessarily have what they need around them to support being able to do something that's challenging.
Yeah. I mean, that is, I think, so true, because my wife did have a job. Like I had family that I could fall back on if I needed to, and when I needed to, because there were definitely times, you know, when my brothers would give me money to help support me, or, you know, like we had people. So it wasn't, so I didn't have the full luxury to fail, which is probably what helped me succeed. But I also I knew that if I did, it wouldn't be the end of the world, right? Like I had things to fall back on. And I mean, that's huge.
Your amazing sense of style was always going to be there. So you're like, I will always have a job.
Exactly. It's like, I will just be my own stylist in my clinic, which nowadays I don't get to do because I wear scrubs, but I do have very cute scrubs. Since the COVID started, I was like,
oh, have the scrubs been used since COVID for you?
I switched over to the brand Figs. Do you know that brand? Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is so cute.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. But did you hear what happened with them recently with
that
ad?
Oh no. Is there something I can't wear them anymore?
I mean, they're trying to do a lot of repair work. So there's still a lot of doctors that I see supporting them, but I think they posted a photo of a female DO in hot pink scrubs with like a very clear like DO badge. With I don't remember exactly if it was like diagnosing for dummies or something like that, like holding a book but upside down and kind of looking at it like,
oh, really?
And yeah, it got pulled, as you can imagine, really fast, but I was really surprised that it even made it that far.
Yeah,
it was just like, especially with all the work that I feel that they have been doing to really reach many different types of healthcare providers across the board. I couldn't believe that commercial made it into the public view. It was really disappointing. A lot of people were upset. So, but
well, that's upsetting. I mean,
it is. Yeah. And it was right around the time, actually, this was even interesting timing. It was right around the time when it was revealed that Donald Trump's doctor was a DO.
Oh.
And people were like, what's that? Like, why would they give the president a subpar doctor? And I was like, wow, like the amount of the amount of lack of knowledge that is
Mhm.
that is present in this statement is, and that even really solid journalism sources were like, what's a DO? Let's explore. And I was like, come on, y'all. You know what a DO is. Like,
Yeah, it's not new.
like, this is not new. Let's not play dumb. Like, this is, don't feed into like putting a extraordinarily well-qualified human being down, with, I can't even imagine like the challenges that come with treating a president. But yeah, so it was just like the timing of it, of DOs already, getting kind of questioned on their validity of like their ability to be nothing but competent doctors. And then that ad, and I was just like, what is happening? Like the DO community is getting slammed right now, and I was like, man, none of us escape.
No.
It's just, geez. But yeah, that was a interesting little blurb.
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting me know. I did not. I missed that one.
I mean, there's a lot. There's so many little fires happening in the world right now, but but you mentioned earlier that you have a mentor. Is this someone that's specifically a mentor for doctoring?
So that was the person who started the Hawaiian spirituality classes that I do. That was the mentor. Yeah. He's since passed, and his daughter now, who's now another mentor, or that I go to for advice on lots of things. But it was him who. But as far as like a mentor, I looked for mentors like in the field. And maybe this goes to also the field just not being that diverse. Maybe that's part of it. But unfortunately, I don't have a mentor in the field or a business mentor, which, if you know some good ones out there, I always, the more people you can have around you to ask questions and to learn from, I think the better. But
yeah, I think colleagues have been that more for me. I have also very, very much struggled with finding a healthcare mentor. And I have found that there's a lot of people that I can like hire or pay to do like business coaching, and like, so I feel like it's more accessible, easier for me to find someone to, even if it's in a paid relationship and not necessarily just like out of the goodness of their heart mentoring relationship. But harder as a doctor. Because I need someone that not only is aligned with my beliefs on healthcare and equity, and but also I'd want to be able to turn to them for information on access and people that are differently abled, and and that's a tall order. Yeah, so it's been more colleagues for me.
Yeah.
But hopefully that can be one of the things that starts to change. I'm hopeful that as more of us are out here and more of us are in the field, and for example with things like these podcasts, that people hear our stories and start to kind of that those networks can start happening kind of organically through that, by people reaching out and such. So throwing that into the world as potential energies.
I will throw it out there with you. And I do think, things like your podcast, and I do think I see things popping up more and more to connect us. And that is just so exciting, because it does feel like, you can just be in a silo, which is, I know who wants to live in a silo. Like, I'd much rather be working with people like you and, doing good work together. So.
Yeah, I love having Black, Indigenous, POC healthcare provider list that's on my website.
Yeah.
I started it just because I had patients start to ask me, and I started putting it together, and then it was, a lot for me to like write down every time and hand to people. So I was like, I'm just going to put this on my website, and then anyone can access it at any time. And honestly, like there's a lot of times where I'll look at that list and just be like, we're out here, we're doing good things, like we're all in our individual busy practices, but like this exists right here in Portland.
And that's powerful. It's powerful to see. It's powerful for you to put it out there. Yeah. I've sent people to that list.
Yes, good.
Yes.
I know people are always like, aren't you going to monetize it? Like, will you put it behind? I'm like, no, are you kidding me? Like, this is a basic need. Like there is no profit. There is no like any of the providers paying to get on here. There is no patients paying to access this information. Like I was so upset and offended at that comment. I was like, don't you try to take this from us.
Right.
I will guard it with my life. Legend of Zelda.
Really?
So I'm curious, now that you're in the field and you're doing what you do and you have a successful practice, like, how do you see us getting more Black, Indigenous, and POC young folks interested in medicine?
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if it's not a lack of interest, but, a lack of access, which is so often the case for us. The stepping stones to get there. And then if we get there and, something happens, to be able to get back up and keep going, and to have the support to keep going along the way. I don't know how many of my friends I've talked to that went through their grad programs as the only one, or one of a very small group of Black and Brown students. And, depending on the person and depending on what they have available to them, that can be deciding in itself. You can make it all the way there, and it just, and then the teachers, all of the biases that happen. And I remember going through school, like I just didn't have the political acumen that I have now, or like I didn't understand the histories that I have now. So things would come up, or people would say things, or teachers would do things, and I would be like, that's wrong. And I know it's wrong, but I don't have the facts that we often so need to like then bring up to back up what we know is wrong happening. So, I mean, I think it's so multifaceted. I mean, part of it is us marching in the streets and talking about police reform, right? Because the school to prison pipeline is real. And part of it is making sure that we have what we need to, just the basic needs, especially right now with COVID happening. So many people having less and less of the basic needs of shelter and food. And part of it is the healing. I think it's so, it has to be so many of us working in all of our areas, and also coming together to make it possible. But, things have to change, and probably change pretty significantly for us to see a big change. And I'm working to want to be part of that change, and every day figuring out what that looks like, which is probably, I don't know if that's too big of an answer, but it's the only one that really seems real to me, because there's been so many like laws and little things passed, and because systemic racism is still there. It doesn't really work. I mean, maybe a few more of us get through the cracks, but like not in a real way that will make real change.
Yeah, I know. This all started because I initially like wanted to be going in and talking to like kindergartners and first graders about being doctors. I was like, I need to get them before anyone tells them that they can't,
Mm-hmm.
I need to go up there and be like, it's right here, or like, here's Sita, like, come on, we're here on the other side. And I'm really extremely grateful for Instagram and TikTok and all the people that are putting themselves out there and really purposefully saying like, this is for you, I'm talking to you, and follow your dreams. If you want to be a doctor, you can do that. And I'm like, yes, like any of the people that are out there saying that, because it's not even so much about being a doctor. It's about whatever it is that you want, that you shouldn't feel limited. And then, with doctoring, it just happens to be the lane that we drive in. Right. And so this is the place where we do this.
Yeah, it's been interesting the last few weeks. I've been getting calls or emails from younger people in school, whether it be in Chinese medical school or business school, wanting to like ask me questions and do these like little informal like interviews of like how to like get there. And I'm like, oh, I'm in this role now, which is great, and I have so many, such a long list of people who have played that role for me. So I just say yes. I'm like, I don't know, I don't need to know you. Yes, I will talk to you. Yes, I will make the time, and I think that is another thing, us just saying yes to whoever is dreaming out there. Yeah, we're here. We'll talk to you. We'll tell you what we did, and give the resources we can. Because it makes a difference. All those little moments that like have us change a path or go a different way that, changes our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't, there's been so many times where it was just like, I could have gone down either path, but there was just like something a little shiny on one side that I was like, oh, I'll choose that one, and that little shiny piece can just be somebody on the other end being like, yeah, this can totally be you. Like sometimes it's amazing how little encouragement we can need to really find the courage inside of ourselves, to try something. And I know in the past, now when I look back, there's definitely been times where I was just kind of looking around for anybody to just even give me a nod, like, maybe, like I just needed like any kind of little hint of, I think I could do this. Mm-hmm. And if somebody had just been like, yeah, maybe, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to try it. That's enough, Mm-hmm. People think that sometimes you need like a bulldozer to like really push you over the edge. And a lot of times it's just small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of times people don't know they did it, I mean, at least for me, like, I don't know how many, little things in my life that people don't realize was such a huge gift. It made me say, okay, I'm going to keep moving.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, Sita, I have appreciated you chatting today with me. I'm so glad that this finally happened for us. Yes. I'm still really looking forward to meeting you in real life. Right?
It will happen.
Oh my gosh, these COVID times. I remember we were like, oh my gosh, I think we're going to be able to meet. And this is really going to happen. It's like,
no.
Guess what? But I honestly, I have to say that even before you and I met and when I became aware of your work and your practice, and, I heard from other people that had received your care, I knew already, like I felt so aligned with what you do and the way that you move in your practice. And I felt just even a sense of ease that I knew you were in the same city doing this work, I was really grateful, and that I knew that you had been in practice longer than I had. I think you started practice maybe 3 or 4 years before I did, and so when I became aware, I was like, oh, and she's been here for a while, and she's like doing it, and it was so. Even when we don't know people yet, we can still be a big impact for them. So I really appreciate your practice here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you and everything you're doing. And I'm so grateful to get to be a part of your Hey Doc podcast. This is so cool that you're doing this. It's going to have, I'm sure it's already having a really big impact in people's lives. So thank you for including me in it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I have a few little quick round flash questions for you so that we end. These are just kind of fun and silly. And, whatever comes to mind, there's no right or wrong answers. Okay. What are your hobbies?
I've done a handful of sprint triathlons, which are fun to train for. And I love to sing. That's really just my own thing. And then one of my favorite pastimes would be dancing in the kitchen with my daughter and wife. My daughter's 3.5 years old, and she is a delight and so much fun, and reminds me to play. So
there is nothing like dancing with a 3-year-old. Oh man, that is some joy. That's some joy for me right there. If you hadn't become a doctor, what do you think you'd be doing?
Oh, I think I may have gone into politics. I've got a lot of lawyers, political people that I grew up with. And that was kind of the other road. That was kind of like, I almost started working in the Olympia Democratic Party in between undergrad and grad school. I think if I would have chose that road, I don't know if I would have ended up going into medical school.
Yeah. Ooh, that's an alternate life, Sita. What was your favorite study music? Like, what got you through finals weeks?
Oh gosh. So, Bob, obviously. You're
like, and we're on a first name basis.
Yes, Marley, I guess I should say the last name.
Oh, no, we all know.
Annie DeFranco. I remember when I was in school, I was listening to a lot of her. And then this is not music, but I just have to say Harry Potter got me through both undergrad and grad school. Reading those books.
The books or the films?
The books, yeah.
Yeah, you were like, take me away, take me to a beautiful other fantasy. What were your must-have snacks?
So Lonnie turned me on to this amazing snack that I'm assuming like people grew up with in Hawaii because that's where she found it, which is saltine crackers, cream cheese, and guava jelly, which, it's like, it was really good. And at some point we had to stop eating it. We ate it a little too much, but it was delicious.
You're like, I'm turning into a little guava jelly.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what was happening.
That's very similar to a snack that we eat in Mexico as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we do it with a little bit harder cheese. I actually can't do gluten or dairy, but I do mine on a rice cracker. And the cheese that they use in Mexico is a little bit more firm. And the guava jelly is called ate in Mexico. And so, but it's exactly what you're describing.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, cool. I love those ties that bind.
Uh-huh.
We know it's good.
Exactly.
And what, it doesn't necessarily have to be medicine. It can be other things. You have a lot of interests. What would you still like to learn?
Oh, so much. I love learning. I would love to learn how to play the guitar. That's been on my list for years now. And our daughter's really into music. So I'm like, I think it's going to come around again where we're going to have some time, hopefully, together to learn how to play some different instruments. I grew up playing the flute. So,
wow.
Yeah, I would love to learn how to play the guitar.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh my gosh. Well, Sita, thank you so much for joining us today. And I look forward to keeping up with all the great things that happen with the Black Pearl Wellness Center. Feel free to follow Sita on Instagram. And do you also have a Facebook page?
I do, yeah. Black Pearl Acupuncture
There you
for
go.
Facebook.
Check out her website and just know that 2021 is going to have a lot of great new offerings.
Yes.
So stay in touch with her.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, darling. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, everyone, that's our show for today. Please follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And if this episode hit home for you, let us know. We would love to hear how these stories reach you. Hey Doc Podcast is recorded at the Portland Center Stage digital streaming studio with the AV engineering, logo design, website, theme music, and editing all done by the incomparable Jonas Angelette and invaluable technical savvy of Katie Wen and Greg Lee. Instagram and TikTok management is brought to you by the fantabulous Jen Thompson. And if you want to see the faces of these BIPOC docs, you can watch the podcast on Hey Doc Podcast website, and you can listen on all of your favorite podcast streaming sources. Check out our fun posts of your favorite BIPOC docs on the Instagram page and watch them bust a move on TikTok. Thank you for every listen, share, like, and emoji. I am super grateful to all of you that tune in to listen and to all the wonderful docs that come share their stories. See you next time, friends.